I was 15 years old, folks. 15 years old when the McCartney album came out. That was 1970. I think I bought it late winter, early spring. I can't remember the month it actually came out. I know there was a big kerfluffle with the Beatles because they wanted him to hold the McCartney album off until Let It Be was released. And he already had the date, and they sent Ringo over to talk to Paul. And Paul actually raised his fist at Ringo and said, "I'll finish you." You know, in other words, the answer was no. And the reason that he came off so almost violent with Ringo, of all people, was because he had felt that all the stuff in Let It Be had been mismanaged. He didn't like Phil Spector. He didn't like Alan Klein as their manager. He felt like he was being iced out of the Beatles, right? But he had made his claim to that release date and he was going to hold to it. And then that came out, and then shortly after, was that early summer or whatever? Maybe I'm thinking late winter, late spring, or is it like springish and early summer? It's right around there. I'm talking from memory here. Okay, I was there. And the McCartney album sold really well, by the way. Often, especially back in the 70s, when the likes of Jan Winter was through Rolling Stone magazine interviewing John. John was hot to talk about all of the inadequacies of Paul McCartney and his latest music and everything else. And of course, later when Ram would come out, Rolling Stone was going to give it a stellar thumbs up. Yeah, great piece. And Jan Winter went in and put a kibosh on that, told the writer, no, I need something a little more downplay, you know? So he did that, right? So he was there and all of that. And so that's why Paul was in the mood that he was in. Okay, there are tales where the Beatles would return and either threaten or actually throw a brick through his window. They were pissed at each other, okay? And so Paul wasn't going to take a back seat anymore. Spector had come in and put strings on Long Winding Road. Yeah, I know. The new Get Back extended Let It Be series brings up that Paul even says at one point, yeah, I might put strings on it. But he didn't like the fact that Spector went in there and got his clawing little hands on it. I think that was the main thing. And he was being ignored. And he felt out of the loop. And so he had recorded this album all on his own. He was going to hold firm to it. I bought it. I loved it. To this day, finally people woke up. I think back in the 90s is when some younger fans who are probably now in their 60s, but newer, second, third generation Beatle fans started going, that album is not only pretty good, but it can be said that it is the first lo-fi album ever recorded. Of course, lo-fi was a big thing there. That's what I do. I do lo-fi recordings. Okay, I've never been in a major studio in my life, right? But I've always had home studios, and I'll lay down one track after another. I play a bit of keyboards as well, right? And I'll even orchestrate. I'll hook this sucker up to a synthesizer with its own thing on the computer, and I'll play the orchestra parts. Okay, that's lo-fi recording. And when the McCartney album came out, that's what we got. Plain and simple, the first lo-fi masterpiece, another first by a Beatle. And so I'm quite aware of Paul McCartney's work, okay? And since I started my channel, and a lot of YouTube channels have been saying the same thing, I haven't been able to cover a new release by Paul McCartney ever. Egypt Station was already out by the time I started my channel. And there was, I've never been able to cover a new Paul McCartney release. And lo and behold, the second I do so, the sucker comes up with a #1 album. So now, why am I saying it's reached #1? Let me get over here to this article. I asked the question basically, has it hit the Billboard 200? And said, while it didn't hit the absolute top spot on the all-encompassing Billboard 200, debuting at #5, that's the best he's done since his heyday. Right there. It claimed the #1 spot on the sales-specific chart by pushing 59,500 pure copies out of its 63,000 equivalent album units in its first week. It also debuted at #1 on the UK official albums chart, which became his 24th chart-topping LP in his home country. 24 #1 albums. Who has 24 #1 albums? It's got to be a world record. Out of that total, 59,500 came from full album sales, and that pushed the Boys to Dungeon Lane to #1 on the top album sales chart for Billboard. When was the last time McCartney had a #1? This is amazing. The album also debuted at #1 on the UK official chart. Following that news, the musician took to social media to thank his fans, stating on Facebook, guess what? Our album is #1. Can't get much higher, and we are well chuffed. He says, my team and the whole gang of people who worked on this thing, they have done a fantastic job. So thank you to all of them, and thank you to all of you who bought it, and thank you to me. Says even in his 80s, McCartney seems like he's just getting started. McCartney said he wasn't planning on retirement soon. Now here's another thing, that I haven't brought up, I've wanted to bring up. I'm hearing a lot of content creators going, this is going to be his last album. Or will this be his last album? Or should Paul McCartney stop and make this his last? What an epitaph. Well, he should do it that way. I'll bet you dollars to freaking donuts, every single one of you, that the only thing that will make this Paul McCartney's last album will be his death. Remember Tug of War? What a way to go out there. Hey, he was 40. Man had been in interviews going, I'm in my 30s. I didn't think I'd be playing rock in my 30s, right? What did he follow that up with? An album with some great tunes on it, but it was nowhere near what Tug of War was. And of course, I'm talking about Pipes of Peace. What does he follow up a great work like Flowers in the Dirt with? Once he hits it big, it's like a cube of sugar to a horse. He's going to be nosing into the pocket to see if there's any more sugar in it, baby. Paul has an entire career of not being able to let anything go.
Oh, it's his whole identity.
It is.
And so, yeah, he's not going to stop.
No. And often he falls flat on the next album when he's done this. The last time he put several albums together that were great was with Wings, right? Gotcha. But he's always put stuff and then it goes flat.